Welcome to Transformational Thinkers. In this episode, I sit down with powerhouse executive, speaker, and resilience expert, Victoria Pelletier, for a candid conversation on healthy resilience. Together, we explore what it really means to do hard things in today's world, how definitions of success and ambition shift over time, and the contradictions that come with leadership at the highest levels. Victoria shares her insights from her own journey, from becoming an executive in her early 20s and grappling with imposter syndrome, to redefining ambition, learning the importance of authenticity, and confronting high-stakes personal and professional decisions. This episode dives deep into building confidence, owning vulnerability, and leading with both heart and competitive edge, all while navigating rapid changes in technology and workplace culture. Get ready for a thoughtful, inspiring look at the stories and strategies behind true resilience. Victoria, I'm so excited to have you join me today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
When I take a look at you and everything that you've done in your career and how active you are in the podcasting world and in speaking, I wanted to take a step back and really provide an opportunity for you to share a side of yourself that may be different from other conversations that you've had and may reveal a little bit more about your heart and a little bit more about your competitive edge in the world. And just as an honorable mention, I've watched your TED Talk on healthy resilience a couple times, and each time I watch it, I walk away with new learnings, and it does truly touch me. It touches my heart deeply because I think it is a topic that we just aren't talking about enough, and we don't really know how to get people comfortable with doing hard things the way they used to. And that's where healthy resilience really comes in.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's a learn, as I shared in the TED Talk. I think there's a little bit innate in that, but there's a muscle that can be developed as well.
That's the best part of all. And I think that people have gotten away from doing hard things because they think everything has to be comfortable and everyone has to get a blue ribbon. But it is really good to put yourself out there and grow and let yourself figure out the right way to go through experience and trial and error. So I got a ton out of your TED Talk and your topic. And so, Victoria, in terms of you and your career, you've held positions of authority very early in life. What's a moment when you felt powerful externally but deeply uncertain internally?
I think the first executive leadership role I held was one of those. So I was 24 years old and recruited into my first executive role. I became the chief operating officer and general manager for a private, mid-sized outsourcing company where I was leading all functions of the organization except for finance. And so I don't think 25 years ago, imposter syndrome, the phrase was around at that point, but reflecting on it now, that would very much be what I felt like. So I had title, I had power, air quotes, as a result of such. I was leading 6,000 people in that organization and influence, but underneath, I felt a bit like an imposter. Yes, I started working at age 11. First leadership role was at 14. So I had lots of experience at that point, but not at that level, leading some of the functional areas. So I was highly insecure on the inside around my ability to be successful in that role.
And so when you were in the role, how did you deal with it to help yourself get on a productive path?
I think there's a couple of things, Sarah. For me, I've always shown up with an extreme amount of confidence. I'm not a fan of fake it till you make it, except when it comes to confidence. And for many, in people's minds, it's equated to competence. But also, I feel like you need to help you feel it and believe it by showing up that way. So that was one thing. So I showed up with confidence consistently, even though I really questioned myself. Also, I have always been comfortable surrounding myself with people who know more than I do, have more experience than I do, that bring that diversity to the things that I can bring to the table. And so at that point, I knew I needed to surround myself with such great people, particularly in the areas in which I didn't have great experience.
That will always help you be more successful, having a strong team around you. That's definitely an incredibly winning strategy. What belief about success did you once defend strongly that you no longer agree with?
I define success very much materially. And some of that's from where I come from. I lower socioeconomic family, never had to worry about food or clothing or not having a roof over my head, but there wasn't money for much else. And my mom told me when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, she's like, Tori, you need to do better than us. My mom was a secretary and my dad a janitor. And so I was driven to, like, vocationally, education wise, do more. But I also viewed success through a lens of have and have not. And so material wealth and possession. And at some point, like that very much shifted. Like I do not look today at that as a definition of success. Now, my mom said money doesn't buy happiness, but it makes one hell of a down payment. So, which I love, and it's afforded the ability to do and give things to my children that I never had, but it's really not my definition of success now.
That's great. If someone studied your leadership style under a microscope, what contradiction would they find?
I do show up as the leader I would want to follow and to try and be the mentor for others. However, there are a number of things that I do. And I do say to my team, do as I say, not as I do. And that the biggest one of those is for me, don't ask me about work life balance because it's all life and you figure out how to integrate it. But I have made choices to do things like work while I'm on vacation. So I know I don't set a good example but I try and articulate to my team why and where that comes from and that I do not have those expectations for them, but that'll be the first thing they'll tell you about my leadership style and the way I operate.
I understand it's hard to not look at email when you're on the plane.
Yeah, I don't want to come back to 1,000 emails, so I'd rather just like deal with those while I'm away and then dive back into the real tough stuff when I am back.
I totally understand. How has your definition of ambition evolved as your influence grew?
The ambitions changed. And again, maybe that's a little bit aligned to the question around success. I think, achieving title and seniority so early, that became less about the ambition. I had achieved it, but more around the outcomes I was looking to achieve. And so my ambitions shifted towards what's the kind of impact that I can have. And that
Mhm.
and I would measure that in very different ways. Yes, business and financial metrics, but I am maniacally focused on having the right kind of leadership, building the right kind of culture within the workplace, but also much more broadly within the community. So my ambitions are bigger and tied to much more of the legacy I want to lead than, again, the success metrics of the past. And I think
Mhm.
the influence I have has changed that because now I can say no to things that aren't aligned with that impact or the values that I have. That's come with the influence as the ambitions and definition of success have changed.
Mhm. I think it does change over time as with life. Your priorities start to change a little. You see things a little bit differently. It's amazing how shifts like that can occur. If you could define your dream life, what would you be doing and where would you be? It's a nice thought.
I, to some extent, I made part of that happen. I grew up in Canada, although I've been working in the US for a long time, but I've done my best, very, very best to escape the cold winters and snow. I now live in sunny Miami Beach. I'd say that's part of it. However, I love Europe.
Yeah.
And so I do think I would be somewhere in Europe, potentially in the south of France, Spain, something like that. Career wise, I love what I do. However, I was an actor when I was young.
Wow.
Started with modeling. My mom started that because I was very, I'll say, I don't know if it was introverted. I was just very quiet. And I was a quiet observer. I still an avid observer of people. And she thought that would break me out of my shell. And so went from
Hmm.
modeling to acting. I love it. And so doing it, maybe it's not even about money. Like I love theater, right? So being on stage,
Mm,
you've got the live interaction versus doing something on film. So that could potentially be it.
that's great. Clearly, you use it in your speaking. Clearly.
It's helped. It's
Clearly.
helped.
Clearly. That's great.
I've learned how to be a storyteller for sure from those years. Although playing a character and being Victoria, no mask, is very different. But the orating skills and standing on stages as an actor definitely helps.
That's fascinating, actually. I do encourage you, but your speaking is exceptional.
Thank you.
And so I do acknowledge you that many great things are ahead for you in speaking.
Thank you.
What are you actively learning now?
Oh, a lot to do with AI. In a big part of my career has been focused on transforming businesses, whether that be in a pure business context, M&A, restructure, or technology, which is an enabler to that. But I work for a global technology company leading all of the value accelerators, if you will, to how we deliver that. So thinking about workforce strategy, we need to re-architect role types. But in doing that, so not just supporting that, I want to become much more proficient at AI.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm an early like ChatGPT adopter, but I recently switched to Claude. And I did ask it whether it goes by the French pronunciation or the English pronunciation. It tells me it's the French pronunciation, Claude versus Claude.
Oh.
So I've spent time in there with like co-work, trying to learn how to vibe code. If I'm going to support it with all the other pieces, I want to be much more efficient and effective. I'm not looking to become an engineer, but that's what I'm actively learning right now.
Mm-hmm. I feel like people, employees, have such a strategic role in implementing AI for it to be done well,
It,
where,
yeah, no, you're right. I think we're actually broad, I'll say digital transformation, technology
sure.
transformations have failed to achieve the full value or outcomes that were expected. And a large part of that is a result of the people and process. In fact, as it relates to AI, BCG put out a research paper last year, and they actually said the formula for AI success 10, 20, 70. 10% will come from the algorithm itself. 20% is the data and the supporting technology. 70% comes through people and process.
Mm-hmm.
So things like
For sure.
you identify a great use case, but do you understand how well it's going to be adopted? So are you thinking about it from a process design perspective, from a human centered design perspective? Are you building trust with the employees who need to use it, who need to believe in the outcomes it will produce? So
Mm-hmm.
it is critical for success. So the people component of it is, I think, completely underestimated and needs to be at the forefront as as AI is so rapidly evolving.
Mm-hmm. Those the 2 points that I find most interesting there, the 70% on the importance of the people and their role, governance, overseeing the process, and I believe I heard you say 20% data. If the data is not clean and correct, that's a problem.
It is. And it's funny because it's like it's a bit of a chicken or egg. I find many companies right now, they're thinking like they have to their data resides in so many different sources. And so they're like, oh, we need to bring it together in a single data lake. Well, that's painful and that can be a multi-year journey.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not wait for that. So finding a way to architect the AI in a little bit more, maybe not open source, but the ability to just pull and leverage. Because if you wait for the data to be perfectly cleansed or all in one location, you're going to be very, very far behind. And so more and more companies, are trying to find strategies to move forward. But although that becomes a broader strategic initiative as well in terms of where does where does data reside? I mean, it needs to be clean. If you're going to teach the large language models, the LLMs, you want to teach it with accurate data underlying it. Yeah.
Absolutely, so that there is a good result. What is something that you're actively unlearning as a leader?
Actively unlearning. I feel like I'm unlearning less than I used to. As I'm more confident and more experienced as a leader in what I've realized works well, I have to unlearn less. And so the early learnings or unlearnings were, around being like not showing vulnerability, not showing emotions, things like that. And so I've unlearned that way of thinking and I show up very differently. Now, the one thing I'm continually trying to learn slash unlearn is around patience and patience. I'm not patient by nature. I'm way better professionally than I am personally, if you ask my husband. His wedding vow said that he would be the patience to my impatience. Like that'll tell you something. But I'm trying to unlearn a little bit more of the drive, and I know I operate at a just such a pace that not everyone operates with, and I can't hold that same expectation. So I'm constantly, that's one of those self-awareness things and needing to just slow down, Victoria. It's okay. But that one's a constant for me that I'm working on.
Patience is always a good thing to work on. It is. It's hard sometimes. It's very hard. Tell me about a high stakes decision where logic and intuition were in conflict. Which did you follow and why?
There was an acquisition of a company that I was part of. I was running a North American division of a global company. We'd done a series of rapid acquisitions over a course of 18 months. And a big part of that was bringing the synergies, bringing things, doing role elimination as you brought together. And so my head said, I needed to make some more aggressive changes. It was probably I think it was the second or third somewhere in the series of 6 that we'd done to eliminate some roles. But my gut said there were a couple of key leaders that I thought I needed to keep, or at least keep in the roles and not find them different ones within the org. And that was because of the relationships I felt they had. In some cases, I hadn't spoken to all of their clients, but I was just like, there's something here. There's something here. And there's one in particular, and she was really tough for me. This one leader, I was 20 or 30 years her junior. I was newer to that industry we were in. And it was my first time being relocated to New York. And she was a native New Yorker and who was just like so hard and so driven. And so that one, I'm like, I need to work with this. And actually, this is an exercise in patience. It took me a year to get her on side. But ultimately, my gut was right. The relationship she had with the clients of the portfolio she led, which was about 50, this is almost 20 years ago, if not, it was $50 million then. And that's material, let alone what it would translate today. So that one was one. And I got challenged by our CEO over why I wasn't being a little bit more aggressive in that restructuring round. But there was an inkling I had without, full knowledge and having spoken to all of the clients. Ultimately, it paid off. But that one, like I said, it took me a year of working with her and proving the value that we brought working together to like ultimately get her on side. And so that one's one of the like proudest moments I have as it relates to some of the kind of transformation work that I've done.
I would say that really shows that you're not just making decisions based on the numbers, you're actually considering the individuals and the value that they bring.
Very much so.
That's huge. Huge in today's world, anyway. What kind of problem still keeps you mentally restless?
On the personal side, I have 2 adult children, and it doesn't matter how old they are, like always concerned for their health and their happiness. My youngest in particular has suffered, although is in a very good place now, but suffered with mental health and substance abuse challenges. And so making sure that he's okay, and he's a trans male as well. So you add all of the
Wow.
challenges, and so that's one that will still weigh on me. He's in a very good place. He's been drug free, he takes his mental health meds. He's in a great place, but I think I'm always going to be like concerned. So that'll sit heavily with me. And it doesn't. He's almost 22 now,
hmm
and so that one's just always there in the back of my mind.
I think when it's someone you love, I think it never leaves your mind or heart. Never leaves your mind or heart. When you're under extreme pressure, what changes first? Your thinking, your emotions, or your behavior?
I am very quick to emotion, regardless of what the emotion is. And again, I'm so much better, professionally at like controlling that. Now, some people say you can see it on your face. Like I'm super expressive, but I am better even controlling that professionally than I am personally. Sometimes my husband is like, if we're out, he's like, stop. He's like, stop that. So quick to emotion that translates into sometimes the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been like that. I feel deeply. So that, that comes first. And then, but that's where exercising a little bit of that patience and, taking the calm, deep breaths before I then react has been
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Well, it's not a bad thing to have emotion. And I think that we need a little bit more in the world. So stay in touch with what you feel.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's my 2 cents. What's a decision you delayed too long, and what did that delay teach you about yourself?
I'll go with another personal one, but it was a pivotal year for me. It is, and I think I made some decisions career wise. So I made a decision to leave my marriage after 11 years, 2 years after I originally wanted to do so. And I stayed because my children were younger at the time. And I learned a lot from that experience. Now, I felt guilty. So I was married to a woman previously. You've heard me say husband. I'm married to a man now.
Mhm.
I've been openly queer all my life. And the devastation it brought of breaking up my marriage and my family, and then finding out her cancer had returned a couple of months after we
Mm,
separated.
that's painful.
Very, very. And there was a heavy, heavy weight and guilt that came for a very long time with that, which I think on one hand, had I left earlier, I would have felt a little less of that. But
Hmm.
I waited too long, and that was some of that was still a little bit of confidence in me, believing in me, and trying to make some right decisions around balance and what made me happy.
Mhm.
I made a lot of roles. They say, that some of the biggest stress in your life, like divorce, death, new job. Well, I did divorce and new job.
That's hard.
But I just said, like, again, what am I happy? What fulfills me? And so
Mhm.
taking the bold move personally also allowed me to do that and be more declarative. I feel like there was a switch for me career wise as a result of taking that bold move. And I wish I'd done a little bit sooner.
I'm sure sometimes when you take a stand for what's best for you, it can unleash positive energy, that can manifest new experiences that you may not had in the past. So I think it's remarkable. How do you personally distinguish between confidence and ego in yourself?
It's a fine line. It is. And so I will often mentor people, whether through work or externally, or coach people, and around that, like the humility, like be very proud of the accomplishments, be really clear on speaking to outcomes you've delivered. Like I'll say, you're the CEO of your career, of your brand. So learn how to be confident talking about that with humility, which is, again, that's that fine line that bleeds into someone being told they have a big ego.
Mhm.
And I think it's almost like just not taking it for granted that you've done that and that it will continue to reoccur, right? You need to
Mhm.
still, focus on performing, focus on showing up, in the way in which you're committed to as it relates to your brand, your leadership, like all of those pieces. So fine line. I don't know that there's a magic answer to it, but sometimes I'll actually tell people who I think have crossed the line to spend some time getting like some 360 feedback. Find the people who are trusted advisors to you to tell you and give you in the moment or near moment, not to embarrass you in front of a room, but feedback
Mhm.
on how that's been perceived. Because in some cases that might not have been their intention, but creating
Right.
awareness around that for sure.
Right. I know I don't know you very well or deeply, but I would offer that you probably have innate self assurance because it shows so clearly and easily.
I think so. It wasn't always there, or maybe it was hiding for a long time by some of the
Mhm.
other insecurity and childhood traumas and those kinds of things. But now I do. But I think as I don't take it for granted. It's
Mhm.
come with experience and scars, and so that gives me the confidence.
I think you've built the muscle, and it would be fascinating to know where it is in your strengths finder.
Mm. I did do that. I did do the Clifton Strengths Finder, right? I did do that.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I can't
It'd be
remember exactly where it
fascinating.
landed. Yeah, yeah.
You definitely built the muscle.
Good.
Definitely built the muscle. What is a subtle leadership mistake highly competent executives make without realizing it?
The exceptions they make. I spent a lot of lately spent much time writing around culture and how so people will watch how you speak, how you act and behave, and the exceptions they make that go against the mission, vision, and values that they have stated. And so I see it so many times. I'm just going to make this exception, right? Like this is our top salesperson, or
Mm,
this person has such institutional knowledge or deep subject matter expertise. So I'm going to forgive or I'm going to let go the poor behavior, that again goes contra.
that's bad.
And but I can't tell you, sir, how many people I see do that. Leaders who are otherwise, you would look at them, around not just business performance. In many cases, I see them being really good leaders, but they allow that. They make exceptions.
Hmm. That's a really interesting way to say it. And I understand and can think back to many corporate situations where exceptions can really chip away at your culture and reduce employee trust in a leader.
They do very, very much so. So I'm sometimes, often a bit of the I'll say poo disturber in that I will call it out. But I live by it. I live by it, right? Like I will not tolerate. I will have the tough conversations and say, like this is not how we operate. And if this
Hmm.
continues, then we can't continue in this capacity. You cannot continue in this organization. It's a hard conversation to have. I try and set the example for that, and I will otherwise call it out, within organizations for us to be better or change your value statement, like, or expect low employee engagement results and don't question
Right,
when they come in poor.
right, right. What signals tell you someone is ready for significant responsibility?
So I think there's some who ask for it. Like I love it. I tried to teach, my children, probably to, my detriment sometimes, like you don't ask, you don't get. Uh,
Hmm. For
so
sure.
my younger one in particular asks. But and so I love that, and I see that in people who ask for it, who recognize that they're prepared and ready to take on more. But there's some who don't, and some of that is that innate confidence. Sadly, there's data that shows women are the worst at that for believing in themselves to meet all the skills criteria to be able to do more or put their hand up to ask for it. So for me, I like to see strong performance in the current role that they're in. Right? Have you mastered or near mastered that? Great. Then it's like time to learn and do something different. But I want to see that they've got a desire and a propensity to learn, to do
Hmm.
more, and to stretch. And ideally, that they're comfortable with, failing at that. Like I want them to be resilient and to go, okay, I'm going to stretch. I might stumble along the way. You're going to be my coach. You're going to help me, or I'm going to find other support. That when I see all of those, that's when I'm like, great, it's time to give you the shot. Like, let's do this.
That's great. That is a rare thing in today's world. It's hard to find people that really want to help you grow in your current role. And so I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I mean, I think that is our role as a leader. I still find some organizations that I hear them, tout, well, we're flat organization. Well, flat doesn't mean you've got 20 something direct reports. Like that's if you're
Right.
going to, and be the right kind of leader who can invest that kind of, the time that's necessary in the growth and development of your team. Like there, at some point, it has the opposite effect. So I believe my goal is, yes, achieving business results, but there's a responsibility I have to those on my team to ensure that
Hmm.
they're performing and that they're developing and I'm helping them get there.
That's great. When you are doing something completely new that requires courage, how do you prepare for it?
I'm not the type of individual who needs like a vision board. However, if that works for you, amazing. But I'm very like mental. Like I sign a lot of my social media posts with two hashtags. One is unstoppable. That is my mantra. That is my nature. But the other is no excuses. So for me, if I have set a goal or objective for myself, I will achieve it. And so that in itself, I'm competitive by, my nature. I've played sports all my life as well. I know that's shocking, right?
I love it.
So
I love your drive.
that in itself gives me the confidence to do something that is uncomfortable. I also believe that when you step into that zone of discomfort, that is
Mhm.
actually where the magic happens.
It definitely is. It is magic. For me personally, I have to really prepare mentally. I have to apply myself. I practice. I have mentally rehearsed.
Mm.
I have to really get myself aligned with achievement, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting conversation with you because it sounds like your preparation is much less than me.
It likely is. However, it's interesting. Like when I enter a room, like I don't like to speak on things that I'm not generally knowledgeable about. Or if I might have an opinion, I'm also very comfortable to say, I don't know what I don't know. And I could be wrong. And I think that, so I'll do what level of preparation I can to come to like meetings and be prepared. That gives me
Sure.
confidence. However, I'm also of the mindset that, I'm quite comfortable being wrong.
Wow. I think that's great because that really allows people to have an open discussion with you about tough topics.
Mhm. Yeah, very much so. I'm sort of seen by many as just like I've kind of got that "come talk to me" face. Although I have an open invitation. Like my team know, like I set up like a regular cadence around one-on-ones with them, and I'm like, but let's not wait for that. Like if you need me, you come sooner. Like let's talk through it.
Fantastic. What kind of failure changes a leader permanently rather than temporarily?
Mm. It depends on the person. Public failure cripples many, and I understand why. I mean, I don't like to fail on a large public, literal or proverbial stage. I don't. So that's probably the one that I see holds most back. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
failure, more so than the smaller, less public, maybe like ones that occur much more frequently.
What question do you wish leaders ask themselves more often but rarely do?
Well, I'm debating between, saying like what makes me truly happy, but I sort of flip it like also, does doing this bring me value? And so leaders often take on too much. As I said, it's all life. So when you think about all the
For
things,
sure.
so like I ask myself, does doing this, whatever this is, does it bring me
Mm-hmm.
personal or professional joy or value? And I find a lot of people don't take the time to assess that. And so they're trying to make compromises all over the place. And sometimes I don't know that there's a right or wrong, but sometimes perhaps there is. And I just don't think they're spending time to evaluate that.
I think there are a ton of people that don't think about it, don't take time for self reflection, spend their life, and then all of a sudden realize that they probably weren't doing what they were called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is tragic.
Yeah.
That is an absolute tragedy. What kind of legacy feels meaningless to you now?
I have some nicknames that I'm proud of that represent the work that I've done, like the turnaround queen. And I mean, maybe it's not meaningless, but that it's not when I die, like that, it's actually not what I want people to be talking about. That should be a footnote, right? Oh, by the way, she did this in business. Yay. And I would rather my legacy be around like the kind of human being I was. Did I raise two really good human beings? Did I leave the workplace, the community, and the world at large a better place when I've left it than when I came into it? So by focusing again, as I talk about like my definition of success and material wealth at one point, like that, but I find unfortunately too many are focused on that
Mm-hmm.
like you're not taking your money with you.
Mm-hmm. The more you can take a step back and look at the relationships that you've built along the way and how people reflect on you, the better, because that really does get to the heart of the matter of what your legacy will be.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. If we could fast forward 10 years, what personal evolution would you be most proud of?
Okay, I can say 10 years now. I'm glad you said 10 years because I said to my older son in particular when he went off to college, I'm like, buddy, I was a young mother by choice. Do not make me a young grandmother by accident. And so 10 years from now, I'm soon to turn 50. So 10 years from now at 60, I will happily be. I want to be a grandmother. I
That's
do.
great.
I do really look forward to that. I wish I didn't live so far away from them, but yeah, lots of opportunity to travel. Yeah. Yeah.
That can change. That's fun and exciting. What is a truth about success that many CEOs discover too late?
Well, it's a flip on what we were just, sort of talking about around legacy. And I think that, the maniacal focus exclusively on business results and not the people side of things and how they led and how people thought about them, how they made them feel, that I think that's underestimated. And so, like, I wrote an article recently where actually, I do a lot of work with like C-suite executives, and
Mhm.
and I see, and I said, like, it's not about the title as we think about your legacy.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, and so that I see a big mistake there. I feel like they often think there's this trade off for having great financial and business results for doing the right thing, and a large part of that is around the employee and the culture and the example that you set.
Mhm. I just think, when you're in a large organization that does perform financially, it gives you an opportunity to care about people more if you want to,
Yeah,
right? You have a luxury to actually care about the individuals. I will always think about roles that I've held based on who I was working with at the time,
mm,
what I learned from them, opportunities they gave me, special experiences. I will always think about it in terms of the people that I was with. And I think when you're in a large organization, there are some luxuries there that you can take to make a tremendous difference in people's lives.
most definitely, definitely.
Victoria, what else is on your mind today?
I'm thinking about next steps for me career wise. I mean, my husband jokes that he doesn't think I'm ever actually going to retire. I won't. I do enjoy working, but it'll be a very different. Like, so I've built now a portfolio career that just will shift in terms of what the size of that looks like when I leave the traditional corporate.
Hmm.
But I think about what's next on the corporate horizon for me. Do I go back to being, CEO, of an organization, which will mean a smaller organization than, the big public ones that I've worked in? I think about the next boards that I'm going to sit on
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And so I'm spending a little bit more time thinking about that, at a personal career level right now.
I think that's incredibly exciting.
It is. It is. There's so many opportunities. Although we're in the market's a bit funny. The phrase we're seeing in the headlines is "no hire, no fire." Although we're starting to see more of the fire, and everyone's blaming it on AI. And I
Hmm.
say blaming it because I don't actually think companies are full scale like AI yet. So I think it's a bit of an excuse. But in reality is it's changing things. But yeah, it's exciting to think about the possibilities and what's ahead.
If there is a target type of company that you would consider, like in terms of being an operating executive for a target company, like what would your ideal size be or type?
I like some size and scale. Now I'm used to like growing and scaling, but I like there to be some size and scale. I bought it, and I say that because I bought a data analytics company a number of years ago, and it was very small. I bought it as an investment, but I did end up running it as the CEO for a period of time. And at one point, I was helping with invoices. Like
I understand.
I don't want to be bad in the weeds. So it's
Right.
probably 500 million plus.
Hmm.
Just again,
That's a great size.
yeah, I think so. Like there's some infrastructure and some, structure within the organization, likely still in the B2B realm since I got recruited out of banking into professional services. There's a dynamic that comes. You serve multiple constituents in the B2B space, right? The clients
Definitely.
write the
Mhm.
paychecks, and then ultimately their customers that you serve, whether it's their end customers or their employees, depending on what side of the professional services space you're in. So likely B2B.
Mhm.
I spent some time in human capital businesses. I spent a lot of time talking about leadership and culture. So, potentially it's one that's geared in that space directly, because then I'm marrying my passion directly with how the business makes money.
So maybe a boutique consultancy that's in the mid-market.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great place to be. 500 million is a nice size business because they really need, if they don't have them, good processes and systems, and they need to really start taking care of their people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think just putting it out there is half the battle because someone's going to hear what you're looking for.
Exactly. To my, you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah. That's right. Putting it out there is half the battle. Thank you so much for your time today, Victoria. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
The three key takeaways from today's discussion: resilience is a muscle. Healthy resilience isn't just innate, it's learned, and it can be developed over time. Embracing challenges and growing through discomfort is where the real magic happens. Success and ambition evolve. Definitions for success have shifted over time, whether they are material achievements to the impact that we have on others, whether it's people, culture, or legacy. It's not about the title, but the difference you make. People drive transformation. In an AI driven world, it's the people and the processes that determine true digital transformation success. Data and tech are enablers, but culture and adoption are critical. I am so grateful for the chance to share this wonderful conversation with you and all of the learnings in it. Let's keep building cultures of resilience, purpose, and authenticity. Thanks so much for listening.